Begin with is altogether there are 5 documents that we have to complete for the key skills in total. There are 2 numeracy ones and 3 literacy ones. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the skills that are required to complete them. Obviously I'm not going to just give out any answers and things, but I'm going to show you what you have to do, and I'm going to do it a bit crudely. I'm going to do it like I've got a blackboard, but I'm going to be writing it with my mouse. So although my handwriting's not the best, multiplied by using a mouse to draw, it does make me look like I've got some learning difficulties. But we'll just have a go anyway. So the first one I'm going to look at is the area mini project here. And they've all got, and so what we're going to do, so the first thing to realise is for the numeracy ones, we actually, and you know, talking about handwriting, we have to print these out. Okay, these have got to be done by hand, in pen or pencil, in your bestest handwriting. So we're actually going to, and we're going to collect these from you when we see you next. So these all have to be printed out. So first thing you do is print out. So first print out this area mini project. This is the first one. Fill out your learner name and assessor name, and sign where it says signature of learner there, and then I'll sign it, and if it gets IV'd, they would IV it. So the first one is all about, so the skills are measuring, being able to do some basic multiplication stuff, and then drawing something, and then being able to draw something to scale. Okay, so the first thing you have to do, okay, is measure the length and width of your office. Okay, and it's an arbitrary thing, whatever you know, whatever size you mention, whatever size it will be. Okay, and then so what we have to do, what I'm going to be showing you is in here, all throughout these documents, and when you printed them out, there are these boxes. Okay, and basically we've got to fill these boxes up with information. Okay, and so what we don't want is, you know, what we don't want to see is, like, you know, your room's very rarely going to be an exact size. You know, I'd be very surprised if anybody's got a room that's 4.2 meters, like 4 meters by 3 meters. You know, they're not going to be exact sizes, and we shouldn't like round things down to make it easy. The whole point of this is to demonstrate that we've got the skills that we can do slightly more complicated multiplications and things with paper. Okay, so I'm just going to remind people how to do it, because some people will have forgotten. I know I had personally forgotten, and so I think a little reminder wouldn't go amiss. So let's imagine, okay, so, and this is the bit I was talking about at the start. I'm going to try drawing my my stuff. So let's imagine that I've measured my room and that it's 5.5. Do you like this? 5.5 meters long. Okay, and let's imagine that it's 3.5 meters wide. Okay, I'm just going to make that stroke a little bit thinner. So what we have to do is to calculate the area of a room. I'm sure you'll remember, is it's the length times the width gives you the area. Okay, so if it was nice and simple, if it was 3 meters by 3 meters, then it'd be 9 meters squared. Okay, but let's try and remember how we go about. And again, I do apologise for the very. Let's try and remember how we do multiplication when we've got decimal places, because you might not remember. So basically, the technique is to actually forget that there's any decimal places there. Just forget about them. Okay, and I'll show you what we do. So then this becomes sort of more traditional long multiplication, and I'll go through and do one with you. So what you do is you work your way from the right to the left. Okay, so we've got 5 times 5, so that's 25. So we write down 5 here, and it was 25, so we carry the 2. Okay, and again we do 5 times 5, which is 25, plus the 2 that we had, so we've got 27. Okay, so that is that's 5 times 55, essentially what we've worked out there, 5 times 55. And now we're going to do the 30 times 55. Remember, we're just forgetting that the decimal points are even there to start off with. So what we're going to do is, because we've now moved along and we're doing the 30s, we start off by putting the 0 in already. Okay, so we put a 0 in to represent the 30. And then we do the basic multiplication again. We do 3 times 5 is 15. So I write down 15. So I write down the 5 and carry the 1. And again, it's the same number. 3 times 5 is 15. Plus my 1 is 16. Okay? And so I get 275 and 1,650. And then what you have to do, so what have we worked out? We've worked out what 5 times 55 is, and we've worked out what 30 times 55 is, and now we add the two together to get 35 times 55. So let's add them together. So we've got 0 plus 5 is 5. 5 plus 7 is 12, so we put the 2 down, carry the 1. 1 plus 6 is 7, plus 2 is 9. God, I hope I'm doing this right. I hope I've not made a mistake. And I've got a 1 here. So 35 times 55 is 1,925. Okay? Now, the little trick that you do, and whether you remember this from school or not, is you then put back in the decimal places. And so what you do is you count how many numbers appear behind the decimal places. So I've got 1 here, that's 1, and I've got 1 here, okay? If this was, say, 35.52, then I'd have 2 there, but it's not, there's just 1 decimal place, okay? So there's 1 decimal place in here, and there's 1 number behind the decimal place. So I've got 2 decimal places, and so I just count 2 numbers in, and I put the decimal place 2 numbers in. Okay? So 5.5 times 3.5 is 19.25. And I've got a little calculator on here. 5.5 times 3.5 is 19.25. Phew. That would have been embarrassing, but that's good. Okay? So the basic premise is forget the decimal places, and then just do like a big multiplication. So we're doing 35 times 55, and we just break it down and we do the end numbers first, and then we do the 30s, and then we add it together, and then we count how many numbers appear behind the decimal place. Well, there was 1 up here, and there was 1 here, and then we count in 2, okay? And so also, so the last bit that we would write down is that the area of our room, and you'd actually, I'm not even going to attempt to write with a mouse, but you would put, and I want a sentence here, but the area of the room equals 19, wow, this is really hard, 0.25 meters squared. And that's going to be really important to show that you've gone from meters to meters squared, because an area is always demonstrated in meters squared. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, so that's the sort of, so let's go back to our other document. So in here, in this this space below where it shows this box, that's what you'll do. You'll do a sum just like I've done, just like I did there. So you'll have that sum, and you'll show all your workings out. And we want realistic answers. We don't want just 2 times 2. No room's really going to be 2 by 2 or something like that. So actually go for it and do the actual answers. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is to convert our lengths and widths from meters to centimeters. Okay. Now, luckily, this is really easy to do. Okay. So and I'll just show you the maths for it again. But let's do 5.5 meters. Okay. And basically, we're going to times by 100. Okay, times by 100. I'll just put the dot naught in just to line it up. Okay, and so all you do when timesing by 100 is we just add in the decimal, we add the zeros in that we've already got. And then I'm going to do 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 5 is 5. So again, I'm just ignoring all the decimal places initially. So I just say, and I'll just scribble that out I then count how many things are behind the decimal place. Well, there's just 1, isn't there? There's only 1 thing behind the decimal place, that 0.5. And so I just move it in 1. So, I'm just showing you again, because I'm sure everybody could times by 100. You just add 2 zeros to the answer, don't you? But so 5.5 meters becomes 550 centimeters. But again, just remember this idea of when you're multiplying, and I want you to show the workings out. hopefully in better handwriting than I've got here. Okay, so 5.5 times 100 is 550. Okay, and then you do the same for the width as well. So that's what you're going to put in this box. Okay, obviously with all your own numbers. Then what we have to do is, because what we're going to do is there's a sheet of, the last page of this document is a sheet of graph paper that you can see here. Okay, and this graph paper, each of the little squares is 1/2 centimetre. Okay, so 1 centimetre is 2 of these squares. And so what we need to do is we need to redraw, we need to make a scale drawing of our office on this graph paper. And so the way we're going to do that is on this section here, is we're going to just work out how we convert it. Okay, so let's go back and let's do a conversion. So what we'll do is I think I'm going to use 4 centimetres represents 1 metre. Okay, so let me just clear this. I'll close that and I'll just do a new one. Okay, so I'm going to have 4 centimetres. So, and this is what you'd write on your sheet of paper. 4 centimetres is going to equal 1 metre. 1 metre. Okay. So what we're going to do is 4 centimetres equals 1 metre. And so what was ours? Ours was 5.5 metres long. Okay, and so we're going to times that by 4. Okay, so we're going to do exactly the same principle that we have already looked at. We're just going to ignore that decimal point, and we're going to say 4 5s are 20. So we're going to put 0 down, carry the 2. 4 5s again are 20, plus that 2 is 22. So what we're really doing here is we're doing 55 times 4, and then we're going to put the decimal point back in, and so we count how many things are behind the decimal point. Well, we've only got one thing. This 5 is behind the decimal point, and so we put the decimal point there. So what that's telling me is that in order to draw a line on my piece of paper that's 5.5 metres long, I'm going to draw a line that's 22 centimetres long. Okay, so that would be the length. And let's let's do the other one. So we're going to have 3.5 metres. And again, we need to times it by 4 because that's our ratio. And you can pick whatever ratio you want. I've just picked, what we want is something that nicely fills up a sheet of paper. And I think A4 is about 30 centimetres by about 20 centimetres, just roughly. I think it's 29.7 by 21. He says that casually. I looked it up earlier. So, we just want something that's going to fill up a nice chunk of the paper. We don't want something that's 1 centimetre to 1 metre, because then we'd have a tiny little, unless you've got a really big office, I suppose. So anyway, let's just quickly do this sum. So we forget about the decimal point, and again, we're just doing sort of 35 times 4. So we do 4 5s are 20, write down the 0, carry the 2. 4 3s are 12, plus the 2 is 14. Okay, so that becomes 140. And we then say how many numbers are behind the decimal points? Well, we've got 1 again, just this 3.5, and so we just come in 1 decimal point. Okay, and so that's so this is what we're aiming for. So our 5.5 becomes 22 centimetres, and our 3.5 becomes 14 centimetres long. Okay, and then what we'll do is so that working out will all be shown on there. And we really want you to show you working out in as much detail as you can, just to really fill up these boxes. But just like I've done, it should be fine. Okay, and now you need to it's a tiny bit of analysis here. So just a little bit of writing about what we've done there and how you'd use this information. And basically, it tells us at the top here that that your line manager's asked you for this information in order to make measurements. And so we're just going to sort of give that information back here, and we just say something like, I would, having done the conversion, I now know that my area is, whatever the area was, what was it, 19.25? So, you just write that, and I would pass this information back to my line manager so that they could order the carpet or something like that. And then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to get your graph paper here, and I can't really demonstrate this, but from what we've just worked out here, I would then draw a line that was 22 centimetres high and 14 centimetres across, and then I'd come back down 22 centimetres and go across 14 centimetres. There's a fire somewhere on the phone. Okay, so that's this document. So it's a reasonably easy document to calculate, and with a calculator, you know, these things will be a piece of cake. But just, you know, there's just a little bit of relearning. A little bit of relearning that we have to do, maybe have to do here, just to remember how to multiply things when there's decimal places involved. Okay, so that's that document there. So that's that one, sort of a recap of that one. Let's have a look at. Why can't I see that? Give me 1 second. Okay, let's have a look at the other one. Okay, so what we've got here is another mini project, and this is about creating a graph and about, I think this is simpler maths really on this one. So what you've got is, basically it's this back page here. This is where all our data is going to come from. And I'm not going to add these up for you now because that's what you've got to do, but I'll show you the different skills that you'll need. So what you need to do is you need to total all these up across the all the ones that I've highlighted here in blue. They have to be totaled, and then you have to do the totals of all of them going across the bottom. Okay, and all those numbers, so all of those are all going to be written in this first box here. Okay, because we're going to fill out these daily attendance figures. Okay, which is the end column here. Okay, so we're going to fill out the end column by just adding everything up. Okay, and I'm sure everybody knows how to do this, but let me give you a little demonstration. I'll just close that and open a new blank sheet of paper. Okay, this is going to be more painful for me because I've got to write more numbers here. So let's say I've got 47, dear, 22. 28, God, that's awful, 8, 34, and 37. Nothing like doing maths in front of a bunch of people. Okay, so I'll show you why I've used so many numbers in a second. So we're going to add these up. So we're going to go 7 plus 4 is 11, plus 8 is 19, plus 2 is 21, plus 7 is 28. So I'm going to put an 8 down, I'm going to carry my 2. So I'm going to start with the 2, so I'm going to do 2 and 3 is 5, 8, 10, 12, 16. Okay, so our basic adding up, I'm sure you're all familiar with basic adding up, so is 168. Okay, so if that was this total here, which it isn't because I only added 5 things up, you know, you're going to write 168 there to total up all of those. And so what I need you to show in that box is all the calculations. So there's going to be, what is there? There's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's going to be 11 different sums in that first box. We're really going to pack that one out. And they're all going to be written out in full, just like I've done here. Okay, so we're going to have 11 different sums of adding everything up. Okay, so that's nice. That's nice and easy, just a bit of adding up. Okay, and then when you've got your results, you fill your results into this box here. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take those numbers, okay, and in Excel, okay, we've also sent you a blank spreadsheet, okay. So we've sent you a blank spreadsheet, and you're going to take the numbers and put those numbers into the spreadsheet and create a chart, okay, or a graph, same thing, different words. And so here you're then going to write the type of graph you've chosen, a bar chart, and why you think it's best to, you know, why you think that's good for showing your results. And, you know, you could put something in there, something about how it, you know, how things might be easy to see and compare against each other. Okay, so moving on down, the next bit is which day has the highest attendance and which has the lowest attendance. Okay, and so you're going to have to add, you're going to have to add up. You're going to take your results here, and whichever is the biggest number will be the day with the highest attendance, and whichever is the lowest number will be the day with the least attendance. So that's a pretty piece of cake. But then the next stage, this might be just a slight refresher here. You need to calculate a couple of averages, and the averages they want you to calculate are the mean average and the range. Okay, and so let's have a look at how you just calculate those things. So these numbers that I'm already using aren't the numbers in question. So to calculate the mean, what you do is you add up all the numbers. So here I've got 47, 22, 28, 34, 37. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 different numbers there. So we add them all up. So we do the same sum, the same initial part of the sum. Okay, so you copy that sum into the box. And then you need to divide the total by the number that there were. Okay, so this means a little bit of division. So I'm going to do, up here, I'm going to do 168. And I'm going to do divided by 5. Okay, and I'll just give you a quick refresher on how you do this in case you've forgotten. So you just basically work your way along. So you go, does 5 divide into 1? And it doesn't. So I like to write a naught there, even though it doesn't really matter. Does 5 go into 16? It does. It goes in 3 times. 3 5s are 15, aren't there? So there's 1 left over, and so we just do that little 1 here. So I've got 5s into 18. 5s into 18 go 3. Remainder 3. So now we need to use a remainder, so I'm going to create a decimal place there. And I'm going to put my little 3 here. So 5s into 30 go 6 times. So that's my answer. Okay? So of all these numbers here, the mean is 33.6. That's the average of all those numbers. So I've added them all up and I've divided those numbers by 5. Okay? So that's how you work out the mean. Now the range is simple. The range is simply the highest number and the lowest number subtracted. Okay, so in the example we've got here, I would simply take the highest number, which in this case is 47. Okay, so, and another, we want to do little sums for each of these things. So the highest number is 47, the lowest number is 22, and I'm going to subtract those from each other. And so a little reminder, 7 minus 2 is 5, and 4 minus 2 is 2. So my range would be 25. So the range is simply the highest number subtracted from the lowest number. Okay, that's the lowest number. So that's what the range means. Okay, and so here again we've got plenty of paper. So I'd like to see all of the statistics that you've just used, all there. Okay. And then the final bit, so stage 5, this is easy enough. So we're just going to look at this data here, the data that we were given initially, and from that you have to say which was the most attended session and which was the least attended session and the time and date. So if one of them was say this was an answer, it's not, but say that was one of the answers, then you would write in, that's the 4 till, or the 1600 to 2000 on a Sunday. Okay, and so you'd write that in there. So you're just going to find whichever the biggest number is, whichever the smallest number is, and work that out. And then finally, a little bit of ratios here. There must be 1 member of staff per 10 members of people attending each session. And so in these boxes, we have to write how, it says here, write the number of staff required in each box. Okay, and so every 10 people that are attending requires 1 member of staff. So I'll just do the first one for you. So if there were 15 people, then you would need 2 members of staff. Okay, because every 10 people there are. So the only gotcha is if you've got like 20 people, that would also be 2 members of staff, I'd imagine, because 1 is 1 to 10. Okay, but 21 people would then be 3 members of staff. Okay, and that's that. So it's some basic mathematical concepts. The hardest bit is really just doing them by hand without using a calculator. You should check your answers with a calculator to make sure you've done them right, but you should definitely do them all by hand. Okay, and we want to see, as they used to say at school, we want to see your workings. So, I want to see like the division like going on up here. I want to see, you're carrying the 1, don't just cheat and write it out like this and then do it by a calculator. Actually do it by hand. Maybe do it on a scrap of paper if you want to do it first, and then show your workings. It's all about showing your workings. We've got to be able to prove to the key skills assessor that you know how to do these sort of basic things. Okay? Now, I spent a lot of time there on the maths. The literacy, I think, is pretty easy. And so I'll just go through the literacy stuff now, but I don't think anybody's going to have any trouble with the literacy, so I'm not going to spend as long on it. So, 3 literacy assignments, okay? And they've each got their own document, and we're going to submit these documents. We can have these in electronic format. We're going to submit these back to us, okay? The first one is to write a covering letter. So the main skill here is like knowing how to set out a letter with the employer, with your name and address on the one side and who you're writing to on the other side. And what you're doing is there's an advert that's been here, that's been written down here. There's an advert, so it's like for an IT position, okay? And so they're asking for certain requirements in the advert. And you can either write this, so you're just writing a letter, you know, asking for a, you know, putting yourself forward for this post, okay? So you can either, we've given you 2 options. If you want to, you can write it about yourself as though you're submitting yourself, you know, information to it. So you're just going to write a letter as though you were applying for this job. Or, notice it is or, you don't have to do both. Or you write a letter on behalf of this fictitious person that we've invented here, okay? This Andy Smith person that we've given you some fictitious backgrounds of them, okay? So if you want to use that information, you know, and so what you'll do is you'll take certain bits of information, like if you were doing this guy, you know, you'd say I worked as a, you know, I was in the army for 22 years, working as a sergeant major, and I'm really interested in IT, and I've got, you know, got plenty of background in IT, and I've got my level 2 diploma and things like that. So, or you just write it purely from your own point of view, which might be the easiest. Okay, so that's one thing. So we're going to have a letter that's correctly formatted with the date and the dear sir, madam, and you know, yours sincerely if you know their name, or yours faithfully if you don't know their name. Okay, so we're going to have all that correctly laid out. Okay, so that's the one document. So that's not too hard. Then you've got to create a poster. Okay, and we've got to make a poster about health and safety and safe computer use, essentially. And so what we've got is we've got a load of information here about safe computer use, and you need to distill this information into some bullet points, okay, for our poster, and the bullet points are going to go down here, okay? And then what we also want you to do is either find a picture that would represent, you know, safe computer use, or use one of these, or find the best appropriate images. Some of these images we've put in on purpose aren't appropriate to use. You know, maybe this padlock isn't necessarily the right sort of safe, you know, that sort of safe cracking, isn't it? So you're gonna look through this document and synthesize 10 bits from this document and put it down here. Okay, and then at the bottom, list some websites where you've either, you know, you don't have to just use our information. Please feel free to look around the internet and stuff like that. There's some links there about where you can get more information from, and then put down either where you've chosen to take your information from there. Okay, so I think again this one's pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy. Nothing too hard there. This one's probably the hardest, the final one. But again, the great thing about this is you've really covered a lot of it. One of the things you have to do on the literacy side of the course is you have to have what they're terming an essay. But the essay only has to be 300 words long, so it's hardly really an essay. But what we're going to do it about, okay, is we're going to do it on the spreadsheets. And you've already created a personal statement for spreadsheets. And so what we thought is, we're going to take that personal statement and turn that into an essay, okay? And so what I've got here on the right-hand side is an example of exactly that. These are the first 2 questions from and you know, you've already answered and you've already filled in about, I don't know, 15 questions, something like that. You've already written all the information. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to turn that into an essay, okay? We've virtually done it, okay? So, for example, the first question is, what will the document be used for? Who is the intended audience? Where will it be used? Okay, so there's, you know, this fictitious person wrote, the document will be used to help people manage their monthly incomes. It's intended to be used by the person creating it and will remain on screen. And then I've put, what application software tools will be used and why? How will the information be structured? Okay, and I use Microsoft 2008 to create this spreadsheet. It will be a year's budget subdivided into months. I have a total for each month at the bottom of each column. Okay, so you've all written something like this already. Okay, and so how this then might become the first part of your essay. Okay, and so what we've done is the only thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to include some of the questions in what you've written, because some of the answers, so I've then I created a spreadsheet using Microsoft Excel 2008. It's a budget planner showing expenses for a year. The primary purpose for the spreadsheet is to allow me to monitor my finances over a year. I can compare them with what I plan to spend to what I actually did spend. Okay, and the budget has been designed to use on screen. It's not going to be printed out. I've subdivided my month into years. Each month is then totaled up at the bottom to the screen to give me the total spent. So all I've done there is basically reiterated what we've already written here and just put in a few connecting words and a few things that just relate to the questions. And that is 100 words, unbelievably. And you've only got to do 300, well, it's a minimum of 300. It'd be nice if you did more, but minimum of 300. So again, I don't think that's particularly hard. I think the numeracy side of this is, it's only because we have to do it by hand, the numeracy, that it's hard in any way. So lots to do, but none of them are particularly, I can't imagine this taking particularly long to convert something you've already done, half an hour's work there. The poster, I mean, that's there for you. I don't think that's going to take very long at all. I'm sure that can be done in half an hour. And then the writing the letter, again, half an hour. And I actually think now, once you know how, as long as you know how to do the numeracy, as long as you know how to manually do the multiplications and the divisions and things which we've gone through, I don't think that's more than half an hour to do both of them. So a couple of hours work there. So any questions about anything I've gone over? Anything anybody not sure about? Okay, don't. Oh, if you all speak at once, I can't hear you. Okay. Well, if anybody does have any questions they want to ask me on my own, please feel free to give me a ring. We're always here if you need any help. The deadline for this is the end of the month. So we're going to try and get this done. Anybody's got any problems? If you're struggling, please let me know. Otherwise, what we're going to do though is we're going to have more of these key skills because we've got this key skills quiz that we've got to do, like we did when we signed you up, and we just sort of see the difference. There'll be some multiplications and things like that in this key skills quiz. So there will be more of these, mainly for the maths, because I just think people's maths is rustier than their literacy. Because we're so used to, we still write things, manually essentially, but we're so used to using calculators that there will be more maths key skills. But you don't need any more for the actual for these portfolio things we're creating here. The maths is purely for when we do this maths quiz later on. Okay? So if anybody's got any questions or any problems, please give me a ring now or send me an email and I'll be happy to help. Otherwise, I look forward to... So one last thing is, so the literacy stuff all gets uploaded. Okay? So all just like we've normally been doing for everything else, upload the literacy work. The numeracy stuff, you can upload your spreadsheet if you want to, but just hang on to the rest of it. And when we see you, we'll collect the numeracy stuff off you. Okay, so I will say goodbye now, and I'll speak to you all again next week. Okay, bye gang, bye.